lag with Facebook. Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Ready, Set, Thrive. I am your host, Stacey Soleil, and today I have a very special guest with me, Karen Abram, who is the boss babe founder of dashCMA. And pretty excited because you and I got a chance to connect at Inman, Las Vegas, I believe it was, right?
Yeah.
And you were
at Valley.
Yeah, and you were nominated for the Innovator Award at that point. Mm-hmm. And I believe your product was named in the top 10 finalists for Product of the Year for 2019.
We were. It was very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. I've been watching your journey and seeing how putting that action. And that's why I really wanted to bring Karen on for everybody who's joining us here today, because here is somebody who truly knows how to figure out where is there a pain in the industry and how can I create a solution to this problem and differentiate my brand so that it stands out. And so that is why I was very excited and hopeful I could get you in the hot seat today. So thank you so much for joining us. Could you just maybe start off by giving everyone a little bit of background about, how you got into real estate, how you became a founder, just like the good stuff?
Right. So my background is actually as an advertising executive. I've been an advertising executive for over 15 years, working at Chiat Day, Universal McCann, Group M, and helping clients figure out how much to spend on their advertising and how much that advertising would produce in revenue for them. For Sony Electronics, for movie studios, Nissan, Infinity. And then after my son was born, I started to contemplate a different career route. I started to think, how can I maybe transition my skill set into a different industry, and what would that look like? And my husband's a loan officer. So he said, he was helping me brainstorm, and he said, you've always had this ability for helping people feel comfortable with big data. Maybe try real estate. Everyone's overwhelmed in real estate. So
that is so true.
So maybe you could bring some comfort to that. So from there, I thought, that's interesting. I went through the courses, I got my license, and I became a real estate agent. So I've had my license for about 6 years and got my first deal, lost my first deal.
You have to lose one to be part of the club, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that was definitely the moment that the thought of dashCMA happened. I lost my first deal because my client had wanted to offer $900,000 on a property that was listed for $1.2 million that had a market value of 1.5.
Oh my.
And I was struggling with justifying that the sticker price on the property was not anywhere near what it was going to actually go for. And I was having a hard time using the current tools to justify why his offer was far too low. Right. And ultimately, I had put together this, 60-page presentation of everything I wanted to show him. We got to page 9 before he got me. And he said what in that moment, took me back, but was really probably one of the best things anyone said to me. He said, if you're a good negotiator, you should be able to get this done for $900,000. And in that moment, I thought, I am a good negotiator. I just don't have the right tools to illustrate that your price is far too aggressive. Right. So from there, I thought, if I can help other companies figure out how to spend millions, if not billions of dollars in their advertising, why can't I create a tool that also helps you understand that $900,000 is far too low to offer on a property that did ultimately sell for 1.5?
And I bet you your sellers were the sellers were incredibly grateful that you didn't get lowballed in that situation. So
we didn't get that property. Definitely got a rejected offer, but I will say that was the only rejected offer I had, because then from there I started creating a product. I started creating a product that fit my vision and my story of how my sales conversation would go. And instead, I led the tool rather than the tool leading me.
Okay, well, that's a great way to start. So let's kind of talk about that because most of you real estate agents that are tuning in, obviously everybody's running comps. They're running their comparative market analysis. When you're getting ready to list a property or when you're trying to make a decision on making an offer on a property, and there are tools that exist out there.
Yes.
Sure, we know that. But that being the case, tell me and tell us, what is it about what existed that you felt there was something lacking? And what did you do with dashCMA to sort of create that differentiating, that's a hard word to spit out on a microphone, differentiating concept that allowed the product to really kind of catapult?
So the constant theme in dashCMA is perspective. And it's perspective from, does the tool meet the needs of the agent, of the buyer, of the seller? Those are the decision makers after all. Does it meet the needs of the MLS, of the tech industry, and kind of looking at perspective from all angles. But in an actual presentation, I wanted to be able to show that first client, for example, that his price was probably more in line to properties that did not have a view. Right. I wanted to be able to have him understand that his price was more aligned with properties that were at least 50% smaller. I wanted him to understand that his price was more aligned with properties that were maybe a couple miles over. I wanted him to see all of that in one view, and I wanted a visual that really helped illustrate 20 different perspectives that you would have otherwise had to build in 20 different reports. But I wanted that all on one page.
Okay.
So that's kind of a hard thing to do. So I wanted someone to be able to look at that page and instantly say, what's too high, what's too low, and where's that right spot for top dollar value with all factors around it. So that's what we did.
So you wanted to have a snapshot view to make it a quick glimpse so that you can have all the most important data in front of you. So what would you say, how many pages did a traditional comp tend to run when you were first getting into the industry? What did you see as how many pages were the commonplace?
So your average report is about just over 60 pages, can be a bit longer, but to get all of the perspective you would want, you would have to build over 20 different reports. So then you're left with 20 60-page reports.
The other word.
Right, it's a lot. And again, I got stopped on page 9. So the other part is the conversation is really in a presentation format. And by definition, a presentation is one way. It's one person talking to an audience. And I wanted my presentation style, if you can't already tell, is to be very conversational. I'm not the decision maker in terms of selling your home. The homeowner is. I'm also not the decision maker in terms of deciding whether or not to purchase a property. It's not my money. It's right. The buyer is. I wanted something where I can say to them, I want to be able to say to a seller, you're going to be approached by so many different opinions. Your neighbors, your family, your friends, other real estate agents all have a different perspective on what top dollar value is for your home. Has anyone offered to actually build a report with you?
Right.
And I wanted a tool that I could build from start to finish with them so that they can see all the different angles that go into determining what top dollar value for the property is without having to build 20 different reports.
See, I think that's really interesting. And I don't know how many of you that are tuning in, how many of you have sat down with your client and built the report with them instead of just showing up with the report in hand? I think that's a very unique perspective because you are bringing that person into the process. And, at the end of the day, who wants to be in control of the biggest purchase or biggest sale of their life?
Right, exactly.
The consumer, right? Yes. So I love that you brought the power back into the consumer's hand, but with the information to equip the real estate agent to do the best possible job. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you were able to simplify data. That's amazing. So what is the secret to simplifying data? Is it algorithms or what is it?
It's hard. It's not easy. I think the most difficult thing to do is to explain it something simply. But then again, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. And that's an Albert Einstein principle that I've used throughout the tool to help illustrate. We kept redefining it and imagining what it could look like because kept challenging what could make this more simple. How can we basically, easily show someone a very powerful image, knowing that the back end is very robust.
Right.
But you don't need to see under the hood necessarily. You just need to have a car that runs smoothly.
Okay. So think what I'm hearing, because I think one of the things I wanted to, kind of unpack with you was, some key takeaways as to when you're building your brand, whether that's you as a real estate agent who's building your own brand, or maybe you're an entrepreneur who's dialing in right now and who's looking at a fellow entrepreneur who has successfully built and then reached acquisition. You may be asking, okay, what are these key components? What are the questions that you and your team ask one another as you're iterating and going through this process? And I think what I heard you saying through that was, for your particular product, it was simplification. How can we simplify so that it can be easily digested and conversational in presentation? Mm-hmm. And then how can you make all of this information that's on the back end be simplified on the front end?
Yes.
Right? And was there any other key questions that you would ask, your team would continue to ask as you were comparing? Because I'm sure you would, ironically, have to do a lot of comparative analysis when building your comparative analysis tool.
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest question always comes back to, what value is it adding? How is the tool, the landscape for the agent to show the value rather than the tool being the show? And I wanted something that would empower the agent. And in fact, in one of our focus groups, we were, as we were designing the tool, one thing that we had wanted to build into the tool was the idea of showcasing a suggested value. And, agents gave the feedback of, I don't want another third party telling my client how to price. I want to be the authority. I want to be empowered to show why this is that right price. And I thought, why don't we just put your face right on the scale with everything around you so that you can talk to why how your price relates to different features, to different trends, the most recent activity, the closest price points for active pending closed homes, why your price point is best at $700,000 because at $750,000 you start competing with properties that are up to 50% larger.
Correct.
It shows those different perspectives all in the one view. So
what kind of feedback? Because I know, like I said, I have been following the journey since Inman. There was a handful of you that I thought, I'm going to keep an eye on these folks. I think they're going places, and so far I've been pretty spot on, actually. So, but what I was wondering is, from those that were starting to adopt, because there is a bit of a adoption rate where people get pretty popular with whatever their MLS is using at that time, or what they had heard about using in the past, which, that being said, congratulations. I know you've made a bunch of deals with different multiple listing services across the country yourself as well. But what kind of feedback were you getting as far as people who had used a platform prior to yours, and what kind of an experience were they having that was different for them?
I think it was that they were able to showcase their value easier. Okay. That it helped, especially for the newer agents that were having a difficult time when they didn't have all the testimonials or the recent sales to lean on. This way, they were their own testimonial. Someone's not going to ask you necessarily about your background and so forth if you are bringing them that comfort and you're talking very knowledgeably about the activity in the area. And that's very difficult to do in 20, 60-page reports.
Oh, it's overwhelming. And so I would assume that it probably makes it so that, because there's a lot of extremely well-versed real estate professionals that, no offense, guys, don't get mad when I say this, but might choke a little bit when it comes to presentation time. And it's not because they're not an incredible real estate professional. They are, but it's that fear of rejection. It's that getting in front of somebody, saying something like, what if I say the wrong words? Or what if I, say the wrong thing? And then we can get up in our head. Now, all of those years of knowledge and experience go out the door. And then you're overwhelmed by your data, right?
Or if you came prepared with this, presentation, and you were suggesting $700,000 as the list point, and your client was hoping for 800,000. They're going to thumb through that presentation, find the one comparable that did get 800,000, pluck it out and say, they did it, why can't you?
Right.
You need a very solid reason for why.
Right.
And this way, you're able to give a nod to that property in a way that showcases that it is an outlier. So that way you're able to, one, validate that it is possible, but it's also not likely.
Right. Creating perspective is important in any sales process.
Right.
And especially when you're trying to help the consumer to feel comfort and feel that, hey, when I chose to work with a real estate agent and I'm choosing to make sure that you receive your commission to be my advocate here, it's important that everybody feels that they have the most accurate information, that nobody is having any issues with transparency. And so I think, like you said, when you can decode hundreds and hundreds of pages of data into something that's easy to digest on either side of that transaction, that's a win, a huge,
Yes.
huge win. So speaking of a huge, huge win, you had some big news this past week. And I was like, you were already booked for the show. And I'm literally doing something and I see this press release pop up. And I'm like, what? She's going to be on our show. Would you please share with us some of the big news that you've had happen with dashCMA this
Yes.
past week?
So this last week, dashCMA has been acquired by Inside Real Estate, and I have also accepted a position to continue to oversee and build out the product with Inside Real Estate. So,
Yay. So it's like you're like, I get to stay with my baby. I'm not leaving it.
I'm going to college with the baby. Yes.
Well, congratulations. I mean, if any of you are tuning in and you are an entrepreneur yourself, we all know that is the goal, is to take your product from idea, concept into adoption, into acquisition. So well done. Congratulations. Now, for those that may not be familiar with Inside Real Estate, would you mind giving just a little bit of I think most of us know about it, but would you give a little bit more information in case someone's dialing in who's not familiar with what's Inside Real Estate?
Sure, absolutely. Inside Real Estate offers fantastic solutions for brokerages and enterprises and teams that allow you to really follow the full process. One of their top products that you might be familiar with is KV Core,
Yep.
which definitely allows you to stay connected to your buyers, your sellers, the whole way through, from the moment that the thought of buying or selling a home pops into their mind, all the way through to that point where they pull the trigger, and stay connected with them, giving you different points to connect with them along the way. So the integration definitely, or the acquisition, offers a couple things. One, it allows dashCMA to be part of that conversation, part of that process, to stay connected and be part of that full stream of the experience between that agent and that buyer and that seller. Two, and I think the most immediate kind of low-hanging fruit win, is it allows dashCMA to be a national product, which right now, yes.
Yeah, that's big news. Yeah.
Which I'd say is probably 10 out of the 10 questions we receive is, when will you be expanding to this market? So
Yeah, exactly.
now it's very exciting. And the other win is definitely Inside Real Estate team is one of the most thoughtful, innovative teams that I've come across. And to be able to collaborate with these professionals to really build out and finish the product and continue to innovate and expand it, for me, is really the win.
That is very exciting. Plus, they get your expertise to help them with their other suites of services, right? So
at this point, as much as maybe they get from me, I feel that I'm going to
Right.
receive so much more from the people that I'm surrounded with,
right.
and thinking that they offer, that I think I won here.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, the best deals come together when there's true synchronicity on both sides, and I think that's what we see here is a nice marriage of all talents and needs coming together. So that's super exciting. Now, for those folks who maybe say, oh, I may not want to use KV Core, will dashCMA still be available from a standalone perspective, or is it only going to be exclusive?
So it's still available as a standalone product.
Okay.
Absolutely. So you can definitely use it as a standalone, or you can use it as part of that more full experience with the KV Core integration side.
Very cool. Well, that's exciting news. I was very happy to see that. It's that was a very quick process for you because it was the 2019 nominations and then getting named to be Product of the Year. And then here we are, not even done with 2020.
Yeah.
And you reached that point. So that's very cool. So I'm excited to see how the steps move forward. And I'm excited to see this as a national tool that's getting to be used. So that being said, kind of toggling back into our entrepreneurial sales mindset, obviously doing what you do, like you said, being in the world of advertising and then changing industries. I'm sure if you're like me at all, there's always the voice of someone or advice that you've received along the way of something that kind of powers you forward. What's a piece of advice you received somewhere in your career where it allowed you to pivot and helped you to make these decisions that allowed yourself to become next level in your own game?
Yes. So I'd say definitely one, stay curious and be confident in what you know and be humble in what you don't. So know that, especially coming in as an entrepreneur and having to wear every single hat, there's plenty I did not know and I still don't. So I had to learn it. But I also, when you're learning new things, it can become very overwhelming. It can become very daunting. You can start questioning really if you are that right person for that job. But that's when you lean on your confidence and you lean on kind of what you have built along the way and be humble enough to ask for that help, to acknowledge that you may not know it. Surround yourself with those that push you, even if it's just playing a podcast in the background, so that you can be surrounded by those voices, those stories as you're going through it. That way it's reinforced and reiterated to you that you're not alone. Others have done this too. Others have been challenged. Stay curious, stay confident, and stay humble.
Those are great pieces of advice. And I love that you threw podcasting in there because it's funny how it is a thing where people, I remember, my colleague Ricardo and I, we did a podcast together 10 years ago before podcasts were kind of a thing. And, everybody's like, that's so lame. You guys are nerds. What are you doing? And of course, now we see that this is a way that people are ingesting a lot of information. What are some of your favorite podcasts that you tap into when you're trying to be inspired as an entrepreneur? Do you have any favorites? I know it's like just look on the RSS feeds, right? But
I listen to so many, and I love to listen from multiple different categories and industries because that way I think, you're able to start thinking differently about your own industry. One that I just started picking back up again that I used to listen to a couple years ago is the Founder Hour.
Oh, good one.
So I kind of feel like, throughout my day, I'm then just constantly surrounded by, those stories and always sitting with another founder. So that's one that I've been listening to for the last couple of weeks. And I kind of get a little bit on a binge where I just listen to all of them and then go to a next one.
Yeah, I think it's so true. I mean, if you think back to how, when you're it was in school for some, or maybe it was your parents for others, or maybe it was a mentor, you received that, hey, who you surround yourself matters, who you are listening to matters, what you look to, what you inspire to be like or are inspired by matters. So choosing what you ingest, with your listening and your reading really makes a difference. And I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I didn't get that. I was like, but I really just want to listen to rock. I mean, that's really all I care about. and then you didn't realize until later, like there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging you if you love rock, but it's true that if you set aside the time to allow yourself to just be a sponge. And I love that you tap outside of your own industry and receive information, because some of our guests have also had that same piece of advice, that the thing that helped them take that next leap was, I didn't want to necessarily hear what everyone in my industry was saying, but I also wanted to hear what other people were doing, because it could help me to kind of rethink how I was approaching an issue or a hurdle that I'm trying to get over. So I think that is a continuous theme.
Especially because when you think about it, your audience is really the buyers and sellers. They're not in the real estate industry. So even though it's the agents who are the ones that are adopting your tools and using your tools, it's not going to be successful if your tool does not resonate and connect and help and bring value to the buyers and sellers. So what is the experience they want? And especially when you think through the standard 60+ page presentation, your buyers, your sellers, your consumers don't use a 60-page presentation for accessing the phone, takeout menus. So looking at kind of how their patterns and behaviors have shifted and then shifting your tools accordingly, I think it's important to really keep a pulse on the end user and not just the person who's paying for the product. Right.
That's a strong piece of advice. And then also, one of the things that I noticed when I was touring in the Inman exhibition hall, when I was looking at the different products, was that one of the call to actions that your team had was that the speed at which you could deliver these reports, how fast it could come together. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, the comparisons between what an average CMA would run to put together and have a final result versus what you have with dashCMA?
Sure. So we took the process of basically, as you enter, you start by entering the address. From there, we look up public tax record information. We try to see how much time can we cut out for the agent. The agent usually needs to toggle back and forth with the MLS to find their comparables. They don't need to. We're connected to the MLS, so we can cut that time.
Wait, let's pause there. You guys, did you hear that? You use this product. You don't have to wait, go back to the MLS, right, put that information, copy, paste it in, then come back over and finish the process. You can do it in the dashboard of that product.
Right. Exactly.
I think I remember that was my favorite selling point when I saw it. I was like, wait, you don't have to do what I've been doing. I mean, you get used to it, but it's so convenient that it's right there.
But it goes back to that. It goes back to that positioning of, you want to be able to create it with your client. I don't want to toggle back and forth in front of them. I want to have a very seamless flow. Right. I want to look very polished and organized, and I cannot do that if my process is not polished and organized. So
it's so true.
So if I'm building it, I start with that address. Right from there, it gives you best practice recommendations so that you don't need to think, gee, what is the square footage range I would like to look for comparables for? Instead, we know the square footage of the property you're pricing, so we'll suggest the range. That way, you're set, but of course, it's flexible. You can adjust that. From there, we pull in those comparables, we pull in those trends, we pull in various features. So when your client says, I have an amazing view, how much more do I get from my view versus the others in the area that don't have a view? Well, rather than pull two different reports, one with all my comparables that have a view, another 60-page report with all the comparables without a view. Instead, some of the comparables have one, some don't. What dashCMA does is it parses them out on that back end, and we take a look at what is the price difference of those. You check two boxes, and it shows it to you in relation with everything else.
Wow.
So this way, we looked through that full process of each step along the way, and we noted where is the agent spending most of their time? Where are some of those blind spots? Where are the pitfalls? And started to iron some of those out so that it becomes a very seamless experience that you do not need to scroll around. You do not need to flip through pages. You do not need to toggle around. It's all on this one kind of very, simple, clean visual that is extremely robust.
Okay, so I know we're towards the end, but I have to ask you, because as I'm listening to all this, I think to myself, okay, here's somebody who was doing something and said, I don't like the way this works. I wish it worked differently. And so you did something about it, right?
Yes.
We could all really do that, right? Not that we can all build dashCMA, but what I mean is we all have the capability of coming up with a solution to a problem that exists and come up with a unique way of coming up with a solution. So how on earth did you go from being an advertising professional to building a product? I mean, that is a big, because did you have any product experience of building out development product prior to that?
I don't know how to code, and I still don't.
So you just partner with people who know how to do those things.
Right. But I know how to tell a story with data, because again, I know where my strengths are and I know where they aren't. I know where to kind of develop those, but still, I don't know how to code.
So it's all about partnerships, like who you work with matters, and finding people that are strong at, delivering your idea into reality.
Right. I'd say for me, really that moment of deciding to make this a product that other agents can use was when I used the tool to price my own home.
Right.
So I had used this on the side. I was still definitely working in advertising. I had my real estate license. I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to be an agent. So I was kind of balancing both. My son was 2. My daughter was a newborn. It was very busy.
Wow.
And it came time. I had been using dashCMA in its form back then to help my clients. And then it came time to sell my own home. And I used the leading tools to price. And all of the leading tools suggested that we price around $620. And then I priced it in dashCMA, and I saw 2 different price points. I saw one at $620, and I saw another at $720. And price point, I saw the $620 that was consistent with what everyone else said. But at $720, I saw that for prices in my area, for homes, in my area that had a pool, could get a little bit more. I saw that it was a very stale market. I saw that pricing rate of change, people were getting double digits over the list price, that it was a very active market for buyers because 10 of the 11 active homes just went into escrow. So now there was 1 property left. And I had enough negotiation points that I could only see from the way that I was looking at it in dashCMA to justify going for $720. We listed that Wednesday. We decided to go for it because pricing can change every day.
Absolutely.
We said, we have an opportunity today that I know I can negotiate and to defend this price point. We listed for $720 and we got $740. And at that point, wow, my husband said, we got $20,000 over ask. And I said, no, we got $120,000 over ask. Because if I hadn't created this, I don't think I would have seen this perspective.
Right.
And we would have listed this at $620. We would have gone over asking, but not that much more. And at that point, I decided this should be a tool that other agents can use to help them show where the top dollar value is and where that opportunity is.
That's amazing. I love success stories like that. So your pricing overage became seed money for your baby's project, right?
So we knew right where to put it. Yeah,
exactly. Well, I mean, that's exciting. And, so for anybody that's thinking about, how you're approaching your business, like I said, whether this is you as a real estate agent saying, hey, I am an entrepreneur, because that's one of the things that I do coach is, hey, each one of us who has our own business model that we handle. We manage our day-to-day. We are entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be in the tech scene to be an entrepreneur. There's different types. And how you approach your process, how you create your systems, how you handle your follow-up, your organization, your ideation, all of it really matters. And so it's exciting and inspirational to hear from someone who's successfully done so and even changed industry while doing so.
Yes.
That's insane. So, well, Karen, yeah, I mean, I'm like, what's next? Like, I'm excited. So thank you so much for taking the time to share. Do you have any last thoughts, tips, ideas, motivation you want to leave everyone with before we kind of end things here today?
So I would say, if you're creating a product or a brand, you need to love the process. If you're only looking at that end goal, then you have a ceiling actually that you've just put on what it could be. I have no end vision for the dashCMA. It is going to be a constant evolution that's constantly innovative. And it's because of that process that I love it. I'm going to be taking it to college, to grad school, to getting an MBA, and then some for my, little tech baby.
Right.
Loving that process is really, I think, what it boils down to, because it makes the moments where, you get the great wins, but also those moments where you have someone say things that they don't love about it. What can you learn from that rather than letting that squash you?
Yeah. And I love that. It's funny because LinkedIn, I think you and I cross paths on LinkedIn quite a bit. And hey, those of you watching, if you're not using LinkedIn, by the way, there is so much opportunity for professional networking that matters happening over there as well. Sorry, Facebook, but this is true.
Yes.
That being said, one of the things that I did recently was I had asked for somebody for some feedback on something I had done. And it's funny because the response I got back from, most people were like, yeah, it was great. Thanks. Whatever, little tiny suggestions here or there. Then one person's like, I hated it.
Right.
And it's funny because in that moment, your knee-jerk response might be, oh, whatever, right? But something has changed for me, at least, in what I do with my career right now, and I bet you can relate to this. My knee-jerk reaction in that moment was, thank you. Can you tell me more about what would you have liked to have seen? What was missing for you? I want to hear more about that, because I feel like there was an opportunity for me to say, there might be something here that is a unique perspective that someone else would have thought, and they wouldn't have given a second look. If this had been in existence, just even in a small way, they would have stuck around. So I love that feedback now. And that's a newer adoption for me, is learning how to open up and receive that and see the value in it.
And that's the feedback that makes you grow, and it makes you take another look at the path you're on, and do you need to pivot it, and do you need to re-examine? Because if you're just getting praise along the way, then it's hard to get those different opinions. But when someone, for me, the hardest thing for me personally is when someone says, why wouldn't you do it this way? And I think about it and I think, why didn't I think of that? Why
yeah. You're like, that's actually a really generous offer. Thank you for giving me some help there.
If you ask them to even dive deeper into that, to say, what was the process that made you actually come up with that? So that you can really then step into their shoes, so that you can start developing that thought process as well. That's helped me.
Right.
I think being an agent also helped me better understand how people use this, but also being my own home seller and going through that process and seeing that helped. So understanding kind of where each person's coming from and looking at all angles, regardless of their background, helps you grow.
Absolutely. First person perspective absolutely helps. Positive reinforcement is necessary and is so important, but having a discerning opinion that allows somebody to nurture and grow and make that adjusted pivot is also useful as well. So these are all just such great wisdom nuggets that you've shared with us today. So thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate your time. We went a little bit over, but I could pick your brain all day. So hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you, everybody who tuned in, or if you're catching the rebroadcast. Again, my name is Stacey Soleil, Marketing and Technology Director with West, a Williston financial group company. I appreciate you tuning in to Ready, Set, Thrive, and excited to have you come back in next week. And Karen, thank you again. Good luck with your new endeavors. Super excited.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.